Welcome to the Coach's Corner. Today we are focused on Principia College, which is located in Elsa, Illinois. Principia College overlooks the Mississippi and is located less than an hour away from St. Louis, Missouri. Principia is a small college with only about 350 students. It offers a personalized campus experience and a very close-knit community. It is strong academically in mass communication, biology, sociology, anthropology, studio and fine art, as well as business administration and others. The men's rugby team has a long and celebrated history, and they have recently announced the big news that they will be moving to the CRAA D1AA and bringing in Coach Peter Lang to lead their men's rugby team, the Thunder Chickens. I'm delighted to have Coach Lang with us today. Welcome, Coach Lang.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. Great introduction.
Well, it is so good to have you here. And some of you might recognize Coach Lang from his earlier role leading men's rugby at the University of Health Sciences and Pharmacy. But for those of you who don't know Coach Lang, Peter, can you tell us a bit about yourself and the journey that led you to Principia?
Yeah, absolutely. Scotsman by birth, born in just outside of St. Andrews, but grew up mainly in Africa, which is where from both those countries, or continent and country, my love of rugby started. Started playing at a young age, went to university, got injured, unfortunately, at university, ended my playing career slightly prematurely. That kind of led me into coaching, started coaching in the US, was picked up by the Crusaders from New Zealand, who decided to develop me as a coach professionally, and then went on from there to coach various national teams in Uganda, Scotland under 20s, and some professional teams in Europe, Japan, and now I'm in the States coaching colleges. As you kind of said, I was previously at UHSP. I took that project on as a very interesting project of building a program up from scratch that had never existed before, and was really happy with the progress we made in 3 years of competition. We had already finished seventh nationally in sevens, and we were doing well in the 15s program, which took a little longer to build. But unfortunately, as people may know, it's a tough time for colleges in the US, and the UHSP being no exception. It was bought by a larger university, Washington University, which is also based in St. Louis. But Washington University does not have a varsity rugby program, and so they were not bringing varsity sports over with them as part of that deal. And so that prematurely ended that journey, but everything happens for a reason, or when a door closes, a window opens, and this window of opportunity with Principia came about. And we talked extensively over the past 3-4 months before finally coming to terms to have me take over the program, which is really, really exciting.
Great. So, rugby at Principia has a long and storied past. Can you tell us a little bit about the program and where it stands today?
Yeah, and I had to make some notes because obviously I'm very new to this program, so forgive me for looking down. But the program started in 1978 when a student called Ward Patterson met a staff member who had recently joined Principia called Stephen Morgenthalard. It's a hard pronouncing name. Sorry. Ward was a 23-year-old freshman from South Africa who had just come to Principia, and Morgan had played rugby. He attended Principia as a student and then played rugby afterwards as an adult, and then had come back to teach at Principia. And they met in the corridor, and Morgan immediately recognized Ward's accent, and the guys started talking, and their love of rugby was the first thing that came out. And from there, Principia Rugby was born. They decided to form, as you mentioned, the Thunder Chickens. So they started in 1979. as a club rugby team, and grew from there. The early years were the crazy years where rugby was a little bit less formal than it is now. But in the more latter years, they've had a lot of success. As you mentioned, they were a D2 side who in 2023 and 24 were quarter finalists in the national championship. And that team then went on the following year to be the D2 national champions. Sorry, in 22-23, they were national champions at D2. They then promoted themselves up to D1, where they got quarterfinalists at the D1 level in the 23-24 season. So a lot of history there. They were also Sevens national champions in D2 in 2013 and 14. So they've been a powerhouse certainly around St. Louis since their conception, but then nationally up until very recently.
So you mentioned the Thunder Chickens, but athletics at Principia are known as the Panthers. So how did they come up with this Thunder Chickens name?
Well, the Principia athletics teams used to actually be called the Indians way back when. They changed to the Panthers in 1985.
Okay.
But as I was mentioning, as the rugby team was formed, and it wasn't a varsity team, it was a club. They wanted to come up with some sort of differentiation. So they decided in 1980, that's 2 years after their conception, that they would formally join the Missouri Rugby Football Union. To do that, they needed a name for the team. So, for example, in that union, we have the Bombers. We got Sunday Morning. You know, every team had a name, and various names. So the team all got together and voted on various names. And a gentleman called Tim Rowell, who was a junior, suggested the Thunder Chickens. Now, Tim doesn't quite recall where he came up with the name, but I don't think it's any coincidence that at that same time in 1979, there was a successful racehorse called called Thunder Chicken that was racing in East St. Louis, very close to the college. And so I'm sure Tim probably went there for a little flutter or something like that, or got the name from there. Anyway, so they kept voting and various names were suggested, and they couldn't agree on anything, but the Thunder Chicken name kept coming back up to be, you know, they went through round and round and round, and Thunder Chicken kept surviving through the round. So eventually they said, look, the only one that we can agree on is the Thunder Chickens. And so the Thunder Chickens were born right from the very early start.
What a great story. I absolutely love it. You see the Thunder Chickens social media posts floating around, and it always sticks in your head because
It's
it's so
very
unique.
unique, yes.
So I know you're looking at a bit of a rebuild this year, but the good news is that a lot of your former USHP players are joining the existing Principia team. How do you plan to
Yeah.
mesh the two teams and cultures into one?
Yeah, well, actually, Arnie, it's a bit more complicated than that, because you've got to really think there's actually three separate factions coming in, because we've got 12 Principia players who are returning. We've got 11 coming in from UHSP. And then currently we've got 7 new recruits who come from neither of those. And
Sure.
we're still working heavily on the recruiting. So we plan to bolster that number. But so it's actually 3 factions coming into one. And that's going to be really key to my first year and our success is, how do you bring those factions together? Now, fortunately, when I did my master's in high performance coaching, my dissertation was on social identity and how to solve problems like this. How do you take separate factions and form them into one identity? So we're going to be facing that challenge, you know, right from preseason. We'll do that with a lot of theming. I'm a great fan of theming my seasons. I won't tell you exactly what the theme's going to be, because I like to keep it a little secret so that my players can get at it first. But I've been coming up with a theme and a story from history that face these challenges and face them well. So we're going to be using a lot of social identity theory and theming to really bring these guys in. The other thing that's going to really help is we've already selected our captains, and the Principia captain is returning as Charles Luanga. So I'm delighted he's going to be captain, and the returning captain from UHSP is also going to come to Principia, which is Dresden Roberts. So that's really going to help as well. Having co-captains, both of whom come from the separate factions, working together, and they're already talking with each other and forming their friendship, will really help us amalgamate the team into one team.
And I'm sure it's very exciting for the players too to
Yeah.
have this new life breathed into the program.
Yeah, everybody's super excited. The Principia returners are really excited. The alumni, have been reaching out to the alumni. They're very excited. They're super excited that that 22-23 national championship team from D2 are actually going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this year for Principia. And we're going to organize an alumni game. So everybody's really excited about that. So alumni are excited. UHSP are excited. The parents are excited. Yeah, it's created a lot of energy, and we're definitely going to surf that energy wave.
Fantastic. So looking at next season, you'll be playing in the new hybrid CRAA D1A, D1AA Midwest division, which has just had
Yeah.
a lot of new teams added to it. Who will you be playing against, and how does the hybrid setup work?
So we'll be playing against Iowa State, Wayne State College, and the University of Minnesota. And those are the D1AA teams that we'll play against as part of our conference. So lots of traveling. We'll be hosting Wayne State and Iowa, and then we'll be going to Iowa State and Minnesota. And then the conference finals will be on when is that, November 21st at Principia, which is a huge coup for us to actually host the conference finals in our first year. We're really excited about that. But then because there's only 5 D1AA teams, we worked with the Midwest to make sure that each team has 2 crossover games with D1A teams that are more local to them. So for Principia, that will be Lindenwood and McKendree, and we'll have games with them. And those games serve dual purposes. One, yes, to make sure that we get a few more games and get a full season, but also to ascertain the level of these clubs. All these D1AA clubs have ambitions to keep driving their programs forward. And so that allows us to see how competitive they are against the D1A teams, to look at possible further expansion of the D1A offering. It may not happen for some or all of the teams, but it certainly provides that purpose as well.
And you mentioned varsity program. Can you explain what a varsity program is, and is the Principia program a varsity program?
Yeah, there's actually club, varsity, and then there's a hybrid of the two. So a club program is a student-run organization that the students pay to be a member of, just like maybe a chess club or a Model UN or something like that's on campus. Typically but not always, the coaches are part-time, and they don't receive any funding or help from the athletics department of the school. They may receive some funding or help from their recreation department, but not from the athletics department. Then you have varsity, which are full athletics programs that have the full use of all the athletics facilities. They have full-time staff, and normally multiple staff, support staff. They answer to an athletic director, and they're fully financially funded by the school, and the school is able to offer their students financial support as well. And then you have the hybrid, which is an amalgamation of the two, which some clubs are promoted beyond a club level, but not quite varsity level, where they may share some of those resources. Okay. So Principia is a varsity program. I am full-time. We have full-time support staff here as well. And we have all the facilities available from the athletics department, which are really incredible.
Fantastic. When do you expect your players to report to Principia for preseason? And once the season gets going, what will a typical week look like for them?
So August 13th will bring in all new players, and that includes I say new players rather than freshmen because that will include everybody who's coming in as a transfer from UHSP, and they'll have a few days to learn a bit more about Principia and orientation and that kind of stuff, and then every player will arrive back August 17th with preseason starting that evening. To give you an understanding of timing, our first league game is September 12th. So we have just under a month to get ready for our first league game against Wayne State.
Great. And
The
when they,
week,
yeah,
sorry, go on.
that's what I was going to say. What happens during a normal week?
Yeah, the typical week, the exact dates we're still trying to figure that out because we're still recruiting players and finding out when their schedules are. But in terms of the load, it will be 3 coach-led trainings a week, and then a captain's run at the captain's discretion. The captain's run at the captain's discretion. 3 gym sessions, a study hall session. There'll be a team meeting at some point and a film review, and then each athlete will normally have a one-on-one with me as well. So it's quite a full load. One of the great things about Principia is, unlike other universities, is they actually have a dedicated time for sports each day. So 4 to 6 is blocked out. So whereas at other universities, sometimes you have to figure out your schedule according to other people's schedule. I don't have that problem with the training. So we know we'll be training 4:30 to 6 p.m. Just to give guys time to get into the locker room, change, and then get out to the field. So that's nice. It's just figuring out when we're going to fit in the gym sessions and the other meetings. The one-on-ones are typically a little bit more social. I quite often will meet them for lunch in the dining hall or something like that, or offer a cup of tea or something like that in my office or something like that. So those are according to each individual schedule.
Great. You mentioned that you are full-time and that there's full-time support staff. Can you tell me more about the coaching support staff and the facilities at Principia?
Yeah, the coaching staff, firstly, really excited to say that we were given the opportunity to bring my assistant coach from UHSP with me as well, who's my right-hand man. Lucas Black is a tremendous driving force in the success of UHSP and will be a tremendous driving force in our success at Principia. So really excited to be partnering with Lucas again. And then I'm also equally excited to tell you that Tobin, one of the existing coaches from Principia, is also going to be staying. He has another job on campus as well in the president's office. So he'll be with us a bit more part-time. But it's really important that we have his institutional knowledge as well. Then on top of that, we have our video analyst will remain from UHSP and bring him back in a part-time role again, in a remote role, which was the same as it was at UHSP. And then we have a new trainer who's comes with Principia, and they've got an excellent training facility, physio room with I think there's eight stations there that he and his staff work with. And then I'll have a manager that is to be determined. So that will make up my entire coaching staff.
It's a big staff. That's awesome.
Now, in terms of facilities, there is really great facilities there, and so there's a fully dedicated rugby field. We got an indoor facility. We got 3 gyms and stuff like that. But honestly, the best way to do that is to show you. So if you don't mind, I'm going to try and see if technology will play with us here and share my screen.
Go for it.
The first is a video that my assistant coach took. So let's see if that works. Is that coming through?
It is.
Okay, let's play that.
Obviously, there's no markings at the moment, but this is the field where we'll practice and play. Nice little stand and place for recording, and then over there is like a clubhouse where people can get changed and stuff.
So that's a quick view of the rugby field. Now, the facilities in general give you a little bit of a campus tour. So this is Principia on the banks of the Mississippi. So beautiful setting, as you can see. And to give people some idea of the location, this is the Mississippi, and that is St. Louis down there. It looks really far on this, but it's actually just 45 minutes away. And St. Charles is even closer because there's a ferry on the other side that you can take to St. Charles and get to St. Charles in less than 30 minutes.
Now, what you're showing us now, is that the virtual tour for Principia, so people could go have a look on the college website?
Yes, and there is a link tree that's available, but yes, this is available on the website and to do a virtual tour. But the link tree has all this information and links to the application and all that kind of stuff. So I'll certainly make sure that you have that. But if anybody's looking for it, if you go to linktree/Principia Rugby, you will find all this information. So we saw the rugby field, and this is a little bit old. So this is where the rugby field is located. There used to be a track ground there back in the day. That's gone, and the rugby field is just as it's on now. And then this field here, which is called Observatory Field, is our training field. So we've got a separate training field as well as our playing field. Then indoor facilities-wise, just find it, is the Crafton Athletics Center. So we have this space for indoors, which is a huge indoor space that we can actually practice full field. Obviously, we take these cages away, and we can use the whole width of this and length of this. These nets come up, and so we can get full indoor practices in here. In this facility, there is also the swimming pool where we'll do recovery sessions, and the swimming pool also has a hot tub at the end there that we'll also be using for recovery. And then there's also in this this location, but not shown in this video tour, is one of the 3 fitness centers that we have, which is just in here. Just come back out. So yeah, that's the facilities athletically. There are other sports facilities. You can see the tennis court. This is the soccer training field. This is the cross country track that we have. You can see that's the softball field. The baseball field is right below us. And so that's the athletics view of campuses, of the campus.
It looks incredible.
Yeah, I'll just stop sharing that.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, I think it's much better to give people a visual. So really great facilities, and hope people can see it's these are new facilities and top of the range facilities. So we're really lucky there.
Well, I keep thinking about the 350 students having all of that at their disposal.
I know. They're very, very lucky.
They really are. Tell me what your goals are for the first season at Principia.
Yeah, we kind of touched on it a little bit. The main goal is bringing these 3 separate entities into one entity and making them really feel and believe that they're part of one journey. So that's the biggest one goal that we've got to achieve. But obviously, one of the easiest ways to achieve that is through performance. And so we're looking to, these are some really big universities we're going up against, as you said, with 300 students. And I don't know how big University of Iowa is, but I'm sure it's 10 times as big at least, and probably 20 times as big. So being competitive is going to be really important. You know, we're relatively confident. I'm hoping to be top of the table. Obviously, there or thereabouts. We're not too sure, but we believe that there may be 2 spots available for nationals from our conference, because it is a tough conference, and that's the ambitious goal, is that's qualified for 15th national in our first year in this new guise of the Principia College and the Thunder Chickens, and really paying homage to the past and to our founders. And then in the sevens, which we'll be playing in the spring, will be very, very competitive. So we'll be going to tropical sevens. We're looking to win that for sure, and feature very highly in nationals. USHP came 7th in nationals. I'm bringing a lot of those players, plus the players from Principia, which also have played a lot of high level sevens, is going to make it as a powerhouse, I think. So
that's such an exciting year ahead for you.
It is. It's going to be so exciting.
I have 2 questions left for you, and you mentioned paying homage to those from the past. Principia has a Christian Science religious background. Can you tell us about that and how it does and doesn't influence daily life at the college?
Yeah. So they still are a Christian Science institute, and they do want everybody to live in a manner that would be considered Christian, but that's as far as it goes. So really, the way they describe it is you can be as much or as little as you want. They have a beautiful church on campus that is available for worship every Sunday. They host a service there for the community and the community at large, but no mandatory participation or anything like that. There's no mandatory participation in anything religious, and they welcome people from all religions and people from no religions as well. So they're very open to all people's faith journeys, but they do have a very strong campus presence, and various prayer sessions and stuff like that, if that interests you more. So it really is take as much of it as you want, really, which I think is a really sensible and great balance to have.
And from a medical perspective, medical intervention is possible and acceptable and promoted for athletes and things.
100%. So we have a full-time physio trainer. I know in the UK they term them physios, US they call them trainers. But this is not a guy who just knows how to take people up. This is a guy who's spent his life learning all about injury prevention, injury recovery, the human body, all that kind of stuff. So yes, and he's available. He's at all our games, all our home games. At our away games, the away team is expected to provide the physio. So there's always a physio present, and when we're training, he is available. So we have radios where if there's a problem on the field, you've seen the campus is not huge, so he would just get in his car and come right over to deal with any sort of emergencies. So yeah, there's no prevention there. And the reason why I'm sure you asked that is because in the past that had not been the case at Principia, and it is one of the rumors that does need to be dispelled. The 2 rumors is one that you need to be a Christian Scientist. That's absolutely not true. You can be any denomination or no denomination, and the other is that they don't believe in modern medicine. That's also not true. We've got a physio who will take care of us. So
great.
So
thank you. I'm glad you cleared that up. Thank you very much, because I think sometimes people think they know and they don't actually know what is accurate and what is current. I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
Principia, as I mentioned earlier, is located in Elsa, Illinois, and we saw how close it is to the Mississippi River, or the Missouri River rather. We also could see St. Louis down in the distance, so we know it's not far from there. But what is Elsa like?
All right. Well, actually, if I may correct you, it's actually the Mississippi River.
Oh, I said it right the first time.
Well, but you weren't wrong also, because we're at the confluence of the Illinois, the Mississippi, and the Missouri rivers. So in this general area, that's where they all meet, just north of St. Louis. So yes, you're right, and I'm right as well. But so we've got various options in terms of the community around us. So the village of Elsa is a beautiful historic village. It's actually in the National Registry of Historic Landmarks. So there's a lot of preserved old houses. The old salt house is partially preserved, and it's got a couple of little shops and stuff like that, and a little cafe and stuff. Beautiful, beautiful little town. And then next down from that, going west, is the town of Grafton, which has a lot going on. It's got a lot of restaurants, ice cream shop, a few little knickknack shops. It's got a gondola that takes you up into the hills, and in the hills, in that is a kind of a slalom, kind of like almost like a roller coaster, but through the trees and stuff like that. Really cool. And there's a restaurant up there, great place when parents come to visit. As you're going to Grafton, you go past the water park that's just by us as well. So the water park's like 15 minutes walk away from the campus. And Grafton would be about 20, 25 minutes walk away. And then from Grafton, as I alluded to, you can get a ferry over to just north of St. Charles, and you can go into St. Charles in about 25 minutes. And going east in the opposite direction, about 15 minutes drive, is the town of Alton, which is a much bigger town with older grocery shops and all that kind of stuff that you'd expect. Then if you want to go further afield, as I said, St. Louis, you go to Alton, you get the bridge over that is the Missouri River, I believe, and then into St. Louis, and you're right in North St. Louis there, and downtown's 45 minutes away.
Yeah, so then you get to an international airport and all of the other things that a big city like that affords: professional sports, those sorts of things.
Professional sports, large concert venues, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, the proximity to what is now an international airport served by 2 European carriers, direct flights to Germany and direct flights to London, which was started up with British Airways. So yeah, really, really well connected. It's a beautiful campus, as you saw a little bit in the virtual tour. Looks like in the middle of nowhere in the wilderness, but in reality, if you want to get a little bit of city life, it's not too far away. So really the best of both worlds there.
Wonderful. Peter, thank you so much for telling us all about the exciting things that are happening at Principia College and the changes that are afoot for you. I can't wait to see what happens in the next year at Principia with the merging of the 2 teams and the reemergence of the Thunder Chickens. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much for hosting this. And if it's not a spoiler, I really look forward to hosting you in person later on this year to look around the campus.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. We'll see you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.